He wasn't looking for trouble. He was just trying to get home before the sun went down, walking the same street he'd walked his entire life. But that night, something felt different. Eyes followed him, shadows moved where they shouldn't, and within minutes, a single misunderstanding would turn into a nightmare he never asked for. A moment that exposed a painful truth about how quickly a person's skin color can turn them into a target. What happened next would change everything and reveal a reality far too many still face today. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from and subscribe to Horovia, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. It started like any other day for Malik Turner. He woke before sunrise, brewed the same strong coffee he'd relied on for years, and headed to his job at the small auto shop on the corner of Jefferson Street. Malik wasn't a man who asked for much, just steady work, a quiet life, and the comfort of a routine he could depend on. He had friends at the shop, neighbors who waved when he walked by, and a community he'd grown up in. To him, the city felt familiar, almost predictable. Every evening, he took the same route home, a narrow sidewalk lined with old brick buildings and flickering street lamps that hummed softly when the wind passed through. It was the kind of street where he knew every crack in the pavement, every window that reflected the fading light, every shop that closed its doors just before dusk. But recently, Malik had noticed a shift. Small things at first, stares that lasted too long, whispered conversations that quieted when he approached, a sense that people were seeing him differently than they had just months before. Still, he brushed it off, telling himself it was nothing. People were stressed, the city was changing, and he had bills and responsibilities that didn't leave room for worry. That evening, as he locked up the shop and slung his backpack over his shoulder, he felt a strange heaviness settle in his chest. The air was colder than usual. The street seemed quieter. Even the lights felt dimmer, as if the neighborhood itself were holding its breath. Malik didn't know it yet, but this walk, the one he had taken 1,000 times, was about to lead him into a moment that would test everything he thought he knew about his world. Malik walked with his hands in his pockets, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the quiet rustle of leaves brushing against the sidewalk. It was a familiar sound, one that had always made him feel safe. But tonight, something felt off. The street behind him was too quiet. The air carried a heaviness he couldn't shake. Halfway down the block, he heard footsteps, slow at first, then matching his pace. Malik glanced over his shoulder, expecting to see another person heading home. Instead, he saw a patrol car rolling slowly beside the curb, its headlights sweeping across his back like a spotlight. His pulse quickened. He hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't said a word to anyone. So why was the car following him? He kept walking, trying to steady his breathing. But the car crept closer, close enough that he could hear the engine idling behind him. A second later, the spotlight snapped on bright, blinding, locking onto him like he was prey. Malik froze. A voice barked through the speaker. "You there? Stop. Don't move." His heart slammed against his ribs. He raised his hands instinctively, palms open. He didn't dare turn around yet. The last time he'd seen a video like this online, the ending wasn't good. Not for someone who looked like him. "Turn around slowly." He did. The officer stepped out, hand hovering near his holster, eyes narrowed with suspicion that Malik couldn't understand. "What are you doing out here?" the officer demanded. "Going home," Malik answered quietly. "From work." The officer's stare hardened. "You match the description of someone we're looking for." Malik swallowed. He'd heard that line before from stories, from news clips, from people whose lives ended not because of what they did, but because of how they looked. His chest tightened. I just left the auto shop on Jefferson," he explained. "You can call. Hands where I can see them," the officer snapped, cutting him off. Malik lifted them higher, his arms trembling. A neighbor's porch light flicked on across the street, but no one stepped outside. No one said a word. The world felt painfully still. The officer circled him slowly, scrutinizing every inch as if Malik were a threat rather than a man standing on his own block. Malik's backpack lay long and heavy against his spine. He wondered if reaching for his ID would get him hurt. Or worse, another patrol car pulled up. Then another. Doors slammed. Flashlights clicked on. Suddenly Malik was surrounded 3 officers. 4 beams of light slicing through the dark. Voices murmuring things he couldn't make out. His throat went dry. He felt the pressure building inside him, the fear, the anger, the disbelief that his quiet walk home had turned into this. "Empty your pockets," one officer ordered. Malik hesitated. "I don't want to make any sudden moves." "Just do it," the officer barked. His hands moved slowly toward his pockets, every breath tight with panic. His fingers brushed the zipper, then a shout pierced the night. "Stop right there, don't move a muscle." Flashlights converged on him. Boots pounded the pavement. Someone's hand reached for their weapon, and Malik knew one wrong motion, one misunderstanding, and this night could end in a way he might never walk away from. Malik stood frozen in the center of the flashing lights, surrounded by officers whose hands hovered far too close to their weapons. His breath came in shallow bursts, each one tighter than the last. The night felt like it was pressing in on him, squeezing the air from his lungs. He had never felt so exposed, so dangerously misunderstood. One officer stepped forward, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. "I said don't move." Another beam of light cut across Malik's face. His hands, raised and trembling, felt impossibly heavy. He tried to speak. I live right here. Please, just let me." "Quiet," the officer barked. "We'll ask the questions." The tension snapped tighter, like a rope pulled to breaking. Malik could feel every pair of eyes locked on him, officers ready to react, neighbors peeking through curtains, the world watching without stepping in. He wasn't a man anymore. He was a threat, a target, a misinterpreted silhouette in the dark. Suddenly, an officer reached for Malik's backpack. "What's in here?" "My tools," Malik said quickly. "I fix cars, please. Be careful." But the officer yanked it open anyway, spilling wrenches and worn gloves onto the pavement. The metal clattered loudly, echoing down the street like an alarm bell. Another officer shouted, "He's reaching!" Even though Malik hadn't moved an inch. Panic ripped through him. His legs felt numb. His vision tunneled. He didn't know whether to stand still or collapse. He had seen too many stories end badly when fear met prejudice. A neighbor finally opened their door. "That's Malik," they shouted. "He lives here. He didn't do anything." But the officers didn't back away. They didn't lower their hands. If anything, the tension sharp-suited. One wrong breath and everything could shatter. Malik's eyes burned. His voice trembled. "Please, don't hurt me." For a moment, no one spoke. No one moved. The night held its breath with him. And then a sound. A voice. Something that would change everything. But whether it would save him or push the situation past the point of no return remained terrifyingly uncertain. The voice that cut through the tension was calm, steady, and impossible to ignore. "Officer, that's enough. I know him. He lives here." A supervisor stepped into the circle of lights, his presence shifting the air. The officers hesitated, glancing between one another, then slowly lowered their hands. The spotlight dimmed. The commands stopped. And for the first time that night, Malik felt the pressure ease just slightly. But the damage had already been done. His tools lay scattered across the pavement. His dignity lay somewhere among them. His heart still pounded like it was protecting him from a threat that had not fully left. When they finally stepped back and told him he was free to go, the words felt hollow like a permission he should have never needed. Malik gathered his things quietly, every movement stiff with disbelief. Neighbors watched from their windows, some with worry, some with relief, all knowing exactly what could have happened. What almost did happen. And as he walked to his door, something inside him shifted. A quiet truth settled in his chest. He had done everything right, yet still almost lost everything, not because of his actions, but because of his identity. A reality he'd lived with before, but never this close, never this sharp. That night stayed with him. The fear, the humiliation, the understanding that his life could have ended not in a moment of chaos, but in a moment of misunderstanding shaped by prejudice. And he wasn't alone. His story is one echoed across cities, neighborhoods, and generations. A story that keeps repeating, no matter how many times the world claims it's changing. So the question lingers, one we all have to face. How many more lives will be shaken, threatened, or lost before we finally refuse to look away? If you're watching this, don't let Malik's story fade. Share it. Talk about it. Be part of the change.